hang on. You're not going to ask us how
Oh,
we're
do you?
doing? I mean, come on,
No, I
John.
don't want to ask how you're doing.
You always do. What's your
But
problem
we never
today?
do anything.
Well, I
I'm
guess
doing
since
good
you're
if anybody
you're
wants to
paying us
know.
triple time, you're paying us triple time
Yeah.
to record on the holiday. So I
Yep.
guess that's your
3 times
prerogative, right?
nothing's nothing. So okay, let me. Okay, 2, 3, 4. Get ready to ride along for another exciting episode of No Driving Gloves, where Derek, John, and Will use over 75 years combined industry knowledge to bring you a bare-knuckled view on the collector car hobby. So let's get rolling. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I know I'm full. A little bit of turkey, a little bit of ham, all that fun stuff. How was your holidays, and how was you guys up to anything special this week? Of course, we're the day before Thanksgiving, but I know what I mean.
It was all right.
Why do you always have to ask how we're doing or why do you always have to ask how we're doing or what we're doing? Like, can't we just do the podcast, talk about stuff, John?
Because we're important people and they thrive on us telling them every week that we don't do anything.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I ate too much. Ham, turkey, beans, potatoes, potato salad. So typical Thanksgiving. Got to play around with some stuff in the garage. Worked on cars during the long extra days off work. Let's call it the long weekend. So I had a good time. Enjoyed it.
Will, did you give your guys a day off, or did you force them to come in and just give them cold turkey sandwiches on Thursday?
They took Thursday off. I'm not sure if they worked Friday or not, to be honest with you. Being that Friday is not game yet.
Check the time cards and find out, right?
No, we took Thursday off. Came in for a little while on Friday. My wife and I have been Black Friday shopping together for 15 years. It's kind of our thing that we do together, and we really don't. I mean, we buy some stuff, but it's more of just us getting to hang out by ourselves, and
There's something odd with that statement. How do you hang out by yourselves on Black Friday? Last year I went out on Black Friday and I stood in line with 250 people.
Well, no kids. Let me
No,
put it that
there
way.
were kids there.
And well, my kids aren't with me. All right, I ain't worried about anybody else's kids. All right.
I made some good friends in the line. Well, friends for 20 minutes while we were in line.
You're supposed to fight with people on Black Friday, not become their friend. Come on, John. Oh, but no, we've been doing that for a long time, and we just enjoy doing that together. And so we always have a good time on Black Friday, and travel a little bit on Thanksgiving. Go to my wife's grandmother's house and hang out with them, and like I said, eat too much and whatnot. So that's what we did.
Well, let's bring this to the collector car hobby a little bit and figure out how we talk about not ever doing anything with our days. But in this world we live in, I know I spend a little bit too much time in front of the computer monitor. It kind of trickles down from the fourth floor where the administrative offices are, that maybe I spend too much time in front of a computer. And I'm sure Derek spends a little bit of time there. And I know Will would love to hire somebody so he doesn't have the opportunity to hang out in front of his computer, because he wanted the theme of tonight's podcast to be something like Big Oak Garage hiring administrative assistant or something like that.
That's right. BigOakGarage.com. Send me an email.
So if you're actually looking, check it out. But I figured we would go ahead and talk about some of the websites that are kind of our go-tos, the ones that we need to go to. A lot of twos in that statement. Websites we visit quite often, allowing us to enable operation of our doing of our jobs, performing of them. And well, this one doesn't necessarily. It's a weekly visit for me. I get their digest every Monday morning, and it's kind of a good way to start off Monday because it reminds you some people had a worse life than you do. And that's I don't know if you guys have ever visited or seen anything from the website wreckedexotics.com.
Mm-hmm. I have.
But Wrecked Exotics, it's a website that really shouldn't exist, but people worldwide submit to it, and I'm sure it's based in some Asian company, some Middle Eastern company or country, as the English isn't always the best there. It's exactly what it is, or what the title says it is. It's a website, and all it is people that have crashed their exotic cars over the last couple of weeks. And you guaranteed to see some Italian exotic on fire because a Ferrari's on fire every week. And for a period of time it's kind of ended about 2 or 3 months ago, every week you'd see the latest BMW, and I'm drawing a blank on what the big $100,000 electric car is. There was always one of those crashed. But it's a cool place to visit. Reminds you, rich people have problems too. There's where I'm going to take off. It's wreckedexotics.com. Who's got another one for us tonight?
Well, I've never looked at wreckedexotics.com, but I might have to check it out now. One of my personal favorites, and of course, being the brass era guy and early car guy here, I'm going to be the oddball out probably. But I always like to check out the old motor.
So at present, we're messing with some teens and 20s vehicles at work, so I've visited there recently.
So theoldmotor.com is a good place to go to read. It's a lot of more stories and historical information on cars, just things that contributors to the website and the gentleman who runs the website have found in their research on working on cars or just digging around in the files of history, and just some really cool stuff pops up on there on random things from, early different races like the Vanderbilt Cup races, or some of the early Indy 500 races, the early road races that were run all around the country, all the way to just information on early manufacturers of automobiles. And it's just, there seems to always be an interesting story on the old motor, and just something to kind of lose yourself in for a few minutes and learn something new about the early auto industry. So one of my, probably more favorite websites to visit, and just learn a little bit that I might not know, and pick up a new story here or there or interesting fact. So that's one of my kind of intriguing websites to look at.
Is it a forum-based website, or is it a chat room type thing, or is it just a blog style, or how do they disseminate their information?
I'm not very good with modern technology, obviously, but I guess you would maybe call it a blog website. I mean, if you've been on it, John, you probably know the definitive term better than me, but I would call it probably a blog website because it's stories in sections. I don't know.
I don't reckon I've ever been on it. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, this is what the episode's for, is to educate everyone on places to visit. Now, Will, what do you got?
Well, it's probably nothing shocking here. One of my favorite websites to go to is thejalapejournal.com, and hop on the ham and check out. I really like the for sale side of things a lot. I get on there and see what's for sale. I've actually sold a couple of vehicles on the ham. Used to be really active on the ham, not quite as active as I used to be. But there's some really cool. It's more of a forum type deal. You can get on there, and a lot of people, ask questions about traditional hot rods, and that's really what it's about. Is really traditional hot rods, not rat rods, not junk rods, not street rods, just like they were built, in the '60s. That's ultimately my favorite type of build, like the Gold 32 that we built.
Now, Will, I got to
And
ask.
there's just a lot of good information. A lot of
I got to ask you, Will. I was on the ham for a long time when I was younger, and I actually got away from it for a while because it seemed to get away from the traditional hot rodding. I haven't been back on in quite some time, but I'm sure I could probably log in again and still have my old handle and everything. But is it back to kind of being the traditional hot rodding and stuff like that? Because that's what I liked about it.
yeah, it really has really geared more into traditional hot rodding than ever before. Yeah, it did kind of get off the beaten path a little bit, and they revamped the whole website and forum 4 or 5 years ago. And they've really kind of been sticklers about it. I know a couple of friends of mine actually kind of got booted off because of not using the right terminology and not, talking about the period specific, builds and stuff like that. And if you're into rat rods and stuff like that, this is not your website. Um, it is it is really geared toward traditional built 60, 50, maybe some early 70s, maybe um, period correct hot rods from back in the day. Um, you know, they're not into shiny billet wheels, none of that stuff they want on their website or their forum. It's if it's an aluminum wheel, it better be an early Haldebrand or some magnesium type wheels or steel wheels. You're not going to have any billet wheels or anything like that. Maybe some billet wheels that don't look like billet wheels. I know a lot of people are doing that now. It's kind of a hot thing is to make a set of big window Haldebrands, but make them in a 20-inch versus a 16, which is about all they made them in, 15s and 16s. So, um, but it's really went back to the roots of where it was founded on, which is good. Good for what I like and good for what you like too, Derek.
That's good to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah. It's really went back to its roots, and I enjoy it. So, all right, John, you're next.
So one that I've been going to for years goes back to when I was goofing off at my historical conservation job in between car jobs and that. It's a blog website. It's justacarguy.blogspot.com. I think you can actually get to there by justacarguy.com. Put on by a guy named Jesse Bowers. He and I've communicated a few times over the years, but he started this website in 2006, and he puts up 5 or 6 articles every day. It's exactly, if I had a blog site, what I would want my blog site to be. Covers everything if it has to do automotive. His cover art right now is the High Life, which is a Ford Falcon gasser lighting up the tires, gold car. And just, I mean, on the front page today, let's see, he's got mentions Rod Hall's 80th birthday on November 22nd. Let's see here. Another article on his cover talks about a BMW 2002 Turbo. Then he jumps to something on Bridgestone winter driving schools and talks MotoGP, and there were 1,126 crashes this year. And then I guess he's out of California, so I'm assuming he visited SEMA because this is a truck from Linex. It's an International Harvester utility on a Dodge chassis powered by a Hellcat. He just covers everything. He's a Mopar guy. At one point in time, I don't know if he still has it, but he had a Velocitor, and I've mentioned I've had 2 Velocitors in my life. Never met the guy in person, but one day I'll get to California, or I'll convince him to come visit me. I've sent him some stuff for some of his articles when he mentions motorcycles, and I can go take a, he talks about this extremely rare motorcycle, and I go take a picture of it and send it to him. But it's just a cool one to hit. It's one of those, while you're just wanted to kind of take a break over lunch or something, pop on it. I've even got a little shortcut on my iPad. I can just push it, go right there. I don't have to type the domain in. Just a good site that covers damn near everything when it comes to cars, and some stuff you've never seen or talked about before. I guess then that jumps us to Derek's turn, I believe.
All right, I got to fire off another website here that I spend way too much time on. Well, I think we've covered a couple blog type websites. John's, I guess, a blog type website about wrecked, expensive, exotic cars. Will mentioned a little bit about the Ham being a place where there's some classifieds. So I think my next one that I would spend probably a lot of time on, 1 or 2 times a week, taking a look at what's out there, is a website called prewarcar.com. And as you can tell by the name, it's mainly for pre-war cars. And there are articles on it, blog type articles. There's a lot of different pages within the website that you can go to. But I spend most of my time in the classifieds. And it's actually kind of interesting because there's 2 different pre-war car websites. There's actually a European non-US website. There's also a US website. So you kind of have to pay attention to where you are on the website itself and what you're looking at. But if you get into the classifieds, you can kind of search all over the world for what's for sale, and some really fantastic cars come up on there, usually well out of my price range, but you never know what you might stumble upon. But it's also a good way to kind of keep an eye on what the market's doing with the pre-war vehicles, and just kind of, like I say, see what's out there, and dream, if you had more money, what you might be able to buy and import to the US to have a little fun with a brass era car, or even horseless carriage. So one of my favorite kind of classified ad type websites. If I'm looking for something more reasonably priced that I might actually be able to afford from the 30s or 40s or 50s, I tend to then just search Craigslist, because those tend to be the cars I can afford.
So, did you just mention your third one, Craigslist?
No, that was my number 2.5. How's that? That was my, it was my rich man website, poor man website choice. How's that? One, if you've got the money, go to prewar.com to buy your car. If you're working on a budget, see what you can find on Craigslist.
Yeah, there you go.
So where do you go to buy cars, Will? On the
go.
internets.
To buy cars or parts?
Either one. Because you can buy parts for pre-war cars on prewarcar.com too. There's a whole parts section. Fantastic.
Well, I find myself on 2 separate websites a good bit looking at stuff for sale. And one of those is racingjunk.com. It's mainly drag racing type stuff, but they also have a really good, their classified on there is really, really good. They have enclosed trailers, toter homes, they even have go-kart racing stuff. So I don't know. I find it interesting. Not that I'm looking for a drag car or anything like that, but they do have street machines and stuff on there too. But their main kind of core is any type of racing stuff. So I go on there and look for stuff for sale. Um, M Autofied is modified, but it's spelled M Autofied. I get on there a good bit too. It's mainly geared towards more later model custom cars. A lot of bagged and body dropped mini trucks and full size trucks and lifted trucks and just stuff like that. So I find myself on them a good bit when I'm not on the ham looking for stuff for sale. What about you, John? When you're looking for stuff for sale, what do you go to?
The nice thing of what I do is everybody calls me with cars for sale, but the two that I go to that I'm always kind of fantasizing about, well, if I had a barn or if I had a garage and I had money, that last one's the big key thing there. I wouldn't care about the barn or garage if I had money. Uh, the two, and most everybody I think is aware of them and maybe visits them, is I get digests, so I really don't go to the sites. I just get the emails once a day from each place. I probably, if I really cared, should get individual emails, but that would be Bring a Trailer, bringatrailer.com, and barnfinds.com. Bring a Trailer is a smattering of just about everything. You'll find rare Porsches, you'll find Miatas, you'll find Z cars, you'll find, you name it. They just basically run auctions. They put up about 20 new auctions 5 days a week. They run for I think they run for about a week, and some things sell, some things don't. Reading the comments is probably the best thing. The guys that go to this site know their cars, and you eventually learn who the BSers are and the annoying ones, but you also learn the guys that know what they're talking about. It's just a wealth of knowledge. If you want to learn something about whatever, a Mazda Cosmos, so be one that pops up, maybe you'll see 2 a year on there. There's been a couple of the Adam Carolla, Bob Sharp Z cars sold on there. So even historically significant race cars, low mileage Miatas all the time, low mileage Z3s. It's just and they sell for, everything sells for reasonable money. Nobody's too crazy with their reserves and that. And then the other one, Barn Finds, is kind of a flip. They put up about 10 cars a day or so, and it can be anything from 77 Dodge Tradesman, whatever the vans they sold, because Dodge, like typical Chrysler over the years, they used to sell your Shagan wagons from the 70s that were kind of pre-modified from the factory, and you'll see those pop up on there. And I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago, there was a Suzuki Swift GTI that was a rusted out hulk of a unibody car, so not worth buying, but it's something you'll see there. Two rare muscle cars or station wagons or El Caminos, or there's a 79 Corvette on there today that could use an LS swap, and then they discuss an LS swap, and you just see some stuff that really you've forgotten about, that I think most of their writers are a little bit younger than us. I've applied for a writer job to there a couple of times, but I'm always, throwing it together in the middle of the day, so it's really not a wholehearted effort to apply for a writer job for them. But I think most of them are a little bit younger than what I am, so they have a little bit different outlook on the cars. If you want to find an Omni GLHS or just stupid stuff from the 70s and 80s, Barn Finds is probably your place.
Now, John, I've got to ask, the first website you mentioned, Bring a Trailer, you said that they sell, you'll find Miatas on there occasionally?
I would say there's a couple on there all the time.
Okay, because, in our last episode, I seem to remember that there were some, automotive journalists out there that thought they were worthless collectibles.
Well, they might be. But I think that same automotive journalist said something about Volkswagen GTIs, and another website we can hit on, I don't go to very often, but I see a lot of news from them, is Petrolicious. And they had a huge article today on the GTI. I linked it to our Facebook page. And what I want to say, it's totally opposite of what that article said. And right now I'm looking at a 1990 Mercedes-Benz 500 SL AMG 6.0. Now, we talked the 300 SL last week was on the list, but this one's on Bring a Trailer right now, $8,500 for a 500 SL AMG. It's one that I said would be more collectible than the 300 SL, but there's one of those that's not collectible. I don't know if get a Miata to pop up. Porsche Turbo, Sunbeam Tiger, Ferrari Testarossa.
I think Will needs that 500 SL, shop car.
Hey, I'd take it.
I saw one today. I saw something today that would. Oh, it was on Bring a Trailer. No, it wasn't. It was on Barn Finds. I'm sorry. 1973 Mercedes 450 SL. Gold BBS wheels. Period ground effects. Euro spec car. Imported in the mid 80s and as a gray market car. Has not run since. What do I want to say? 1990. I can't remember what the price of it was, and I instantly went through my head as LS swap, and I go, there's Will's car. And then, of course, I got into the comments, and the first comment is, well, this would be great for an LS swap. And the second comment is, you'd be nuts if you destroy this car by doing an LS swap. And then the third comment is, Mercedes is now selling kits to retrofit modern Mercedes drivetrains in these old Mercedes. And I'm going, oh, this just sounds like Will's car.
That's right. Let's do it.
Which, now I'm going to sidetrack us, got me thinking. We talk a lot about the LS swaps going on and being thrown into cars and how easy it is to do. And I mean, I can pick up the Summit catalog, or I can call my GM dealer and order an LS motor with 515 horsepower ready to drop into a car with a warranty from General Motors. And on this SL, and you see it a lot, you're destroying the cars by putting these LS motors in there. There's two books, and we'll talk about them probably in next week's episode. And one's called Bowtie Ferraris, and there's another one, something about Fords and Ferraris. And this book basically covers all these historic Ferraris that have had in the 60s, because parts were unobtainium. People stuck Chevrolet 350s in them. And all of these Ferraris that the guy documents, all these Ferraris by serial number that had V8s in them and were campaigned with V8s. And then when the car started to become worth money, the Ferrari owners put correct motors back in them. The gentleman who authored these books actually had a class approved for Pebble Beach for Bowtie Ferraris. But nobody would enter their Ferrari in the class, so it never happened, because the present owners don't want to admit that those cars were violated in the 60s. I guess you could kind of think it as kind of what Hollywood's going through right now. It's just kind of a scandal that the cars were handled incorrectly at a point in their life. That's just a complete side note why we now can jump to Derek's next choice of websites.
I want to touch on Bring a Trailer for just a second. It was a car that we actually done a good bit of work on, just sold on Bring a Trailer, the little 67 Datsun Fairlady.
I saw that one.
Yep. It sold like yesterday on Bring a Trailer, going to, I think somewhere in California. So, but yeah, so it's a pretty good website if you want to sell stuff too. It wasn't, it hadn't been gone from here, but a couple of months, and he still had a good bit of work to do to it. He done all the detailing on it and stuff like that. But and we painted a few items on it, and it was kind of a basket case, and we put it together for him, and then he stuck it on there, and it wasn't on there long. So it brought 10.5 for a decent little modified Fairlady. It wasn't an original car. So that's pretty good money for an early Datsun modified. I think anyway.
It looks like there's about an 80 Toyota pickup on here. There's your traditional Land Rover. One for you, Will. Right now, current bid price $6,250, 1929 Essex Hot Rod.
Essex Hot Rod.
What
Lakester style hot rod. 29 Essex was built by a Slowpokes Club member, etc., etc., etc. Built from a, I don't know. Let's see. It says something about fabricated from parts from a sorry, Derek's gonna cry, but 34 Packard sedan, 27 Ford. It's being run with a General Motors 2.5 Iron Duke inline 4.
Iron Duke.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason why those Camaros were junk.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember the Iron Duke from last episode.
Chrysler.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Chrysler steering box, Ford F100 drum brakes. So I mean, they cover everything. I'm not going to say this car is going to sell for $7,000 or $6,000. It probably has a reserve on it, but I mean, it's a sweet little street ride, and at $6,000, I'd put it in my garage.
I mean, that sounds like,
well,
yeah,
that sounds like, I'm pretty sure Johnny Cash sang a song about cars like that, One Piece at a Time.
That's right. That's right.
That's how you put these together.
Yeah. And, honestly, we like to talk about the car hobby. That's one way to do it. That is one way. If you're, and I have a couple friends that are building Model T hot rods this way, and early Chevy touring car hot rods this way. They've been for the last 5 years, as they find parts, they're collecting them, buy a frame one day, maybe a year later, find the axles that they want for it. 6 months later, find an engine that they want to put in it. And that's the way you do it. So, it's kind of a prime example of how that happens.
Well, back when hot rodding originated, that's all you could do. There wasn't 1-800 send me hot rod parts. I mean, you had to go to junkyards and salvage yards and your buddy's wrecked car out behind his house, whatever, and rob parts off of it, whether you were trying to make it modern or whether you're trying to make it a traditional hot rod. I mean, that's how you had to do it before all these big box store, hot rod parts came
Very
available.
True. Very true.
Well, wasn't it? Oh, what's his name? Pete Sampouris?
Pete Sampouris.
Pete Sampouris.
Sampouris,
And he started what?
Yep.
He recently he passed earlier this year, but wasn't he one of the first ones to kind of put together that street rod catalog and SoCal Speed Shop, and
sure was.
He began the industry that most of us rely on a daily. I want to see most of our listeners rely on a daily basis now. So.
Yep, Pete and Jake.
Yep.
Pete Sampouris was a very, very, very good man. Very good man.
Yeah, I listened to. I'll plug a podcast here since we're plugging other things. I listened to Shift and Steer, and he was one of the 4 co-hosts on that. It's Aaron Hagar, Matt the Motorator DeAndrea, and Brad Fanshaw. And it used to be those 4 guys, and they've never replaced Pete on the show. And I started listening to him after Pete's passing, but he was a very crucial part as I've been tried to catch up on some of their back episodes. And I never met him. Obviously, Will's had a little bit more experience with him, but I guess that's plugging a podcast that I listen to that, it's also a way to spend the day and learn about the industry, because you have to get out and you have to indulge yourself in this to know it and see everything. There's just so much information to put in our little heads, and we're here trying to do the same for you. Derek, you got another one?
I feel like I'm stuck on early car stuff, but that's what I spend a good chunk of my life outside of work doing. So I'm always...
Say, let me try to bring it modern for you, and maybe you don't want to go there. Do you have a Corvette website that you think is the end-all Corvette website, or modern GM website, or something like that?
I mean, I look at a few of those periodically. for work, see what's going on in the Corvette world. Corvette Blogger is one of the larger Corvette webs. I guess you'd call it forum websites. People. Well, it's blog forum. People can get on there and talk and comment and read stories. There's a few different ones that I'll hit and look at the different stories that are out there on significant Corvettes that either people have written articles about, people are commenting about, or maybe they're headed to auction, they're coming up for sale, something like that. So there are a few of the Corvette ones that I do go to, especially for work reasons. Do some research, and one of the big things for anybody that doesn't maybe understand in the museum world how we work, especially what curators try to do in our jobs. One of the big things I always try to do as a curator is keep track of where, especially significant cars that fit the collection that I'm working with, are at. Who owns them, or what collection they're in, or what museum owns them. That way, when I'm developing the collection or developing exhibits within the museum, I can kind of quickly go to where I need to go to say, if it's privately owned, hey, can we borrow that car for this exhibit? So I try to keep up on where things are moving in that Corvette world now. Obviously, when I was at the Crawford Auto Aviation Museum before I was here at National Corvette Museum, I was trying to keep up more pace on where most of the Cleveland built cars were that were significant to automotive history and Cleveland history, things like that. So yeah, there are a number of Corvette websites. Like I say, Corvette Blogger is one I've hit quite frequently just to see some of the stories that are coming out, and just kind of keep up on what's going on in the Corvette world. So I guess that brings it up into the modern times.
Well, Will, do you have one to close out this conversation? Kind of a roundtable discussion?
Yeah, I do. It's one that I really need to start going back to. I tend to hit websites and forums and stuff to the type of car or cars that we're building in the shop right now, and right now there's a lot of more traditionally inspired cars that we're building. But like when we were building the Dart and several of the other cars in the past, there's a website called Lateral G that I would go to a lot, and it's the total opposite end of the spectrum of the ham, in where it's more in making your car handle better. A lot of autocross type stuff going on there. I know RideTech's a big sponsor of that forum. Um, and modernizing your '69 Camaro into a street machine. It's not just geared towards that, but that is the biggest thing for it. I mean, it is called lateral G, so um, obviously suspension and what wheels and tires and coilovers and shocks and how to adjust your coilovers different from running an autocross to getting on a road course. So there's a lot of really good information on that website as well, and they'll do a story a week or a month, or I think it's a week. Every week they'll pick a car and kind of write a nice little article about it, and the builder and the owner, and how it came about, and they've actually got a pretty good classified on that website as well. But that's another one that I tend to migrate to whenever we're building more of a street machine type car, whether it's looking for parts or just posting build photos. They've got a section on the forum where you can post up photos of your build process and whatnot. So it's a pretty good site to go to if you're into that type of thing.
Well, I think that's kind of little round table. I don't know if it's so much as a discussion as each of us telling you kind of how 5 or 6 different places we go and what they are. So you've got 15, 17 different places now to visit on the internet over the next week as you're enjoying what is that, Cyber Monday and such as the week goes on. A couple of these places, like I said, go check them out, see what you like. Let us know if you've got some suggestions where you think it would benefit us. Please go ahead and send them to our email, social media, no driving gloves at gmail.com. You can find us No Driving Gloves on Instagram and Facebook. So in speaking about this episode and things on the internet, we're going to do a little bit trying to help you guys out. We've discussed our Amazon affiliate link, and that's posted on we're going to go ahead and put it on some of the social media. It's on our website, depending your Google browser. Sometimes it doesn't pop up on Chrome, and I don't understand that. But we'll have mentions of it on Instagram and Facebook for our Amazon affiliate link. And as a way of kind of promoting and helping you through the holiday season, we mentioned in the last episode, we're going to start putting up links throughout the next couple of weeks of things that we utilize in our shops at home and at work that we think would be beneficial to you. And to help you maybe acquire some of this, as you comment to our social media, like our Instagram posts, just as long as we see your name somewhere on our social media every week when we record. So this episode, for instance, will release on the 26th. We'll record again on the 29th. So if you've commented on the episode in those 3 or 4 days, we're going to select name. We'll let you know who it is. And we're going to go ahead and give you a $10 gift card. So we're going to give away some gift cards between now and Christmas, one per episode every week until then. And hopefully you'll utilize our Amazon link to go spend that. It's kind of a way to show you that it's not too obtrusive to do. Like I say, it helps buy some of the equipment, pay for some of the stuff, pay for our hosting fees with asking nothing out of you. We do have a Patreon if you just feel you have to give us money. I don't necessarily do such a great job on following up on some of the rewards, and a lot of times I think tier 2, you get an early release of the podcast, but to be honest, sometimes I finish editing the podcast about 20 minutes before it releases. So there's really no such thing as an early release on some weeks. But it's just, like I said, a kind of a way to mainly tell you what we have in our shops and some of the things we like and we've had a lot of success at. Nothing's going to be sponsored. Nothing's endorsed. It's just us and things we like. And we're going to throw a couple of bucks your way to maybe help you acquire some of that, or at least help some people out during the holiday season. So we hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and we look forward to chatting with you over the Christmas holiday. With that said, I'm out of here. You guys want to say goodbye?
Later.
Good night, John boy.
That will get edited out.
Yeah, I know. Goodbye, Will. Goodbye, John. Goodbye, listeners.